Under the stark, cold moon, a deadly strike descends upon the rooftops. The silence after the swift, brutal fight spoke volumes. The courtyard slicked with crimson evidence as the plotting figures loomed. Their dark intentions were confirmed by a pointed question about Jin's perceived guilt. Dudong's bloody rampage concludes, leaving behind the fallen members of the Shanwu clan. The confrontation paused, but the patriarch's oppressive shadow loomed over the newly resolved Jin. The horrific realization of his own brother's death left Jin utterly shattered and speechless. The black blood demon celebrates his ruthless display of power under the blood moon. Yanha, seeing Jin's newfound resolve, held her sword, her eyes burning with fierce loyalty. Jin stood bloody and beaten, facing the silent, ghostly assembly of the clan elders judging him. The raw accusation hung heavy in the air, staining the silence with the weight of a decade-old betrayal. The patriarch's glowing hand rests on Jin, an unexpected touch amidst the conflict. The spiritual remnant offers gentle reassurance, contrasting the grim reality of the path ahead. That vow of fighting to the end echoed in his mind, even as he stared into the abyss. The fight was over, but the threat of becoming one of Dudong's puppets still loomed. If I am to die anyway, I will die on my own terms, he resolved, gripping the dagger. The patriarch reacts with shock and fury to Jin's unbelievable request. Fueled by rage and a bloody resolve, he clutches the weapon, an oath escaping his lips. His final thoughts revolved around the regrets of a life not fully lived. Amidst the chaotic purple vortex, the black blood demon archfiend recoils, spitting curses at his defeated foe. The patriarch's fury erupts. Shocked by the request for archive access, the patriarch's shocking concession, granting access to the restricted archives, left the bound Jin utterly bewildered. The patriarch surveyed the assembled sons, his decision already hanging heavy in the air. The patriarch ponders the weight of those past events, trailing off into a distant memory. The eldest son voices his bitter objection to the patriarch's decision, furious at the idea of the despised Jin entering the archives. The request for archive access catches the patriarch off guard, his demeanor shifting from sternness to contemplation. Patriarch granted his request, but the brothers reacted with immediate, furious opposition. The accusation hangs heavy in the air, forcing Jin to confront the framed crime he barely remembers. Confused by the sudden accusation of killing his supposed brother-in-law, Jin processed the shocking charge. A pleasant moment of camaraderie, sharing drinks before the inevitable confrontation with fate. The patriarch witnesses the bloody aftermath, his own grief or shock echoing in the surrounding silence. The accusation hangs heavy, prompting Jin to recall the exact date of his alleged crime. Even while tied, Jin maintained his composure, bracing himself for the inevitable judgment. The patriarch's rage boiled over. His decree could not be questioned. The elder brothers watch with thinly veiled malice as Jin's fate is sealed. My brothers offered enthusiastic support for the patriarch's surprising decree. Yanha's bright, enthusiastic face showed her complete faith in her brother Jin. The patriarch listened sternly as his sons protested his decision to send Jin away. My brothers cornered me, their forced smiles masking dark intentions regarding my fate. The horrifying aftermath of the righteous blood war, where the alliance barely held the cult back, is now grim reality. The eldest and second sons gloated, eager for Jin's immediate downfall. The patriarch stood silently, while his sons watched the kneeling, disgraced Jin. The shockwave of their words settles, leaving Jin squatting in the oppressive silence of the archives. My decision to fight on my own terms was made. Now, I would claim what I had returned for. Yanha gasped, witnessing the weight of her father's decision settle upon her brother Jin. Yanha looked at her brother, relieved but still cautious about his strange shift in demeanor. Yanha stared, shocked by her father's sudden concession to Jin's unbelievable request. The patriarch, unmoving behind the bars, faced the son he was about to condemn. Jin, I knew why. Oh, you were only pretending to be a fool. Yanha's desperate plea breaks through, yet Jin sensed something fundamentally different this time. Yanha stared, aghast, as the man inside the cage, her brother Jin, grimaced with unnatural glee. Yanha, always supportive, voiced her belief in Jin's innocence despite the mounting pressure. The patriarch gave Jin a chance, but his older brothers saw only utter humiliation. The patriarch's brothers watched with cruel satisfaction as Jin crumbled, his weapon discarded at his feet. As the patriarch's shocking decision sank in, Jin's eyes burned with renewed, cold determination. The siblings meet across the bars, an unsettling silence hanging in the dimly lit cell. The patriarch's decision to grant the archives stunned everyone, especially his skeptical sons. The spectral presence of the patriarch looms behind him, observing his seemingly subservient attitude. As the patriarch began reciting the primordial infinity art, the onlookers reacted with disbelief and outrage. The patriarch's stern gaze confirmed his decision, silencing the dissent of his other sons. Shang's harsh reaction to Jin's request for the archives left the other brothers aghast. Shang's desperate pleas were silenced as their father, the patriarch, stood resolute against the uproar. Despite his past pretense, Jin asks his father for access to the archives, admitting his ignorance of their clan's martial arts. The patriarch seemed stunned, momentarily speechless by the sheer audacity of the request. The patriarch, burdened by his failure to intervene, offered a broken apology for Jin's fate. Reflecting on his past, Jin realized his father, despite outward distance, had indeed intervened in some crucial ways. The patriarch's wife and her kin watched with predatory glee, their malice stark in the crimson gloom. Standing before the iron bars, the patriarch seemed detached, while Jin huddled on the floor, awaiting judgment. The elder brother, Hyuk, reacted with outraged disbelief at Jin's audacious request. The patriarch's grim expression revealed his hesitation regarding Jin's impossible request. The patriarch stared down, his expression heavy with judgment, as Jin pleaded his case. The patriarch regarded his shackled son, his own judgment echoing in the silence. The patriarch lets out a heavy, resigned sigh at his son's sudden request. The brothers reluctantly agreed to their father's decision regarding Jin's fate. The patriarch's cold command slices through the tension, demanding immediate compliance. The patriarch was suddenly asked about Jin's fate, reacting with stunned confusion. The sheer force of his intention, powered by his awakened past, began to press against the formidable archives door. Ignoring his brother's pleas, the patriarch focuses his energy, perhaps performing a necessary but unwelcome ritual. The eldest son vehemently opposed the father's decision, his shock palpable. Shanwu Hyuk's protest met with the patriarch's cold, absolute decree. Permission granted. Yanha's earnest comfort met Jin's newfound resolve, but the air still held a strange tension. The patriarch, flanked by his other sons, remained resolute against the pleas. His shock was palpable as the elder brother demanded answers about the supposed murder. The patriarch's shocking decision to teach Jin, rather than merely grant archive access, stunned his other sons. The patriarch surveyed the dusty archives, the setting of his son's unlikely plea. The patriarch's agreement hung heavy, an unexpected boon layered with his elder brother's sinister grin. The sudden shockwave of frustration emanated from him, an explosive moment of mental overload. His momentary exhaustion forgotten, he settled back into his familiar, determined posture amidst the endless scrolls. Despite his temporary exhaustion, the promise of the clan's ultimate technique fuels his contented focus. The sheer volume of knowledge overwhelmed the prodigy, forcing a desperate collapse. Despite memorizing everything, the complex techniques were overwhelming. The master's final, incredulous thought rings out in the sudden quiet of the secluded structure. Despite having crammed every detail, the complex theory remained just out of reach. His overwhelming mental cramming finally forced him to collapse, utterly drained from studying the arts. They approached with smug confidence, ready to ridicule the disgraced Jin again. The elegant woman offered a warm, appraising glance as the dark-haired disciple looked on with a hint of apprehension. The taunts continued, highlighting his disgrace as they departed. The bullies revel in their victory, pointing out Jin's disgrace to the onlookers. The sudden discovery of the hidden text left her completely stunned. The crowd recoiled, shouting in alarm as the confrontation escalated. The physical toll of cramming knowledge left the protagonist utterly drained, seeking respite from the mental overload. The whispers confirmed the shocking identity. Lady Zhuge was here. She reacted with an unexpected, almost secretive, intake of breath. The master's gentle hand offered the sacred scroll, a silent acknowledgement of my efforts. The bully sneered, noticing the protagonist's mere presence in the patriarch's private archive. The onlookers jeered at Jin's pathetic state, even as he weakly waved them off. The Gale 3-beat strike connected, eliciting a sharp cry of pain. The painful counter-pressure confirmed the technique. This pressure felt incredibly familiar. His shock was evident as the hidden details of the ancient manual finally revealed themselves. Even a simple block requires immense effort. The strain is palpable as he struggles. As the attackers celebrated their easy victory, Guy could only stare back in horror. The previous block was successful, but the immediate pain of the exertion remained as the attacker cried out. The resulting strike connects violently, sending the other fighter tumbling through the air. The raw effort to grasp the technique was overwhelming, pushing him to his absolute limit. The manual's structure felt strangely recognizable, triggering an instinctual response. As the hidden form manifested, a sudden realization struck him, his mind racing to identify the image. The clash was sudden and decisive, the unfamiliar technique hitting home. Did you just say excellent? Ah, no. Slip of the tongue. The sheer volume of impossible knowledge felt like a sudden, shocking weight. The bully, delighted with his success, could only laugh heartily at his victim. Their mocking laughter shattered his relief as the aggressors closed in, gloating over his weakness. The brute's triumphant shout was answered only by a strained grunt as the impact landed. The combined force of the Gale 3-beat strike was perfectly executed. His counterattack landed with unexpected force, confirming the uncanny familiarity of the movement. Even through the exertion, his eyes locked onto the opening, recognizing the flaw. The sudden intensity of the absorption overwhelmed him. His body strained against the influx of knowledge. The demonstration of the Gale 3-beat strike concluded with a brutal impact, leaving the opponent reeling. The onlookers watched in stunned silence as Guy was effortlessly thrown aside, blood staining the dirt. The master demonstrates the sequence, his expression intense as he locks his hands into a precise stance. The sheer volume of knowledge was overwhelming. He felt utterly spent, his mind hitting a hard wall. The tense confrontation broke as the bullies finally retreated, leaving the courtyard quiet again. The master speaks to the woman, his expression jovial and pointed, even as others watch nearby. His gloating only reinforces how pathetic his actions are, even to the observing, silent figure. Finally free from their taunts, Jin had only one path left: the ominous demonic front. The overwhelming influx of complex techniques finally caused him to collapse, utterly defeated by his own memory. Exhausted from the previous encounter, Jin finally succumbed, collapsing in a heap. Just as I was absorbing the last details, a towering figure loomed over me, my father. Caught off guard by the sudden confrontation, the protagonist stammers a weak defense. He looked back, a strange expression flickering across his face as he finally spoke. Overwhelmed by the impossible knowledge, his body finally gave out from the mental strain. The master, taking notice of Jin's exhausted state, prepares to offer some form of guidance, perhaps a reprieve. His master paused, seemingly examining the book's covers with deep suspicion. His master's words confirmed his mounting suspicion about the hidden layers within the manual. The two figures stand across from each other, the subject of their disdain merely moments ago. The master stood, drawing his blade with a deliberate, almost ceremonial motion. The atmosphere suddenly charged. The martial master executes the familiar sequence, his form radiating immense power. The overwhelming cascade of white light and shadow suggested an immense, almost suffocating presence. The intensity of the sword forms demanded more speed, even from his father's demonstration. The white light intensified, a blinding cascade suggesting immense, untapped power held within the manual. The master's imposing presence radiated power as he presented the essence of the sword forms. This abstract visual represents the overwhelming density of knowledge now stored within his mind. The sheer volume of internalized knowledge overwhelmed him, causing a dizzying moment of clarity. The ceiling light casts stark shadows over the cluttered archive space where I meticulously examined the texts. Surrounded by towering stacks of scrolls, the immense task felt crushing, yet the promise of his gift pushed him onward. Even after absorbing all the ancestral insights, the core meaning of the ancient texts remained elusive. Despite having read every ancestor's journal, the forms themselves remained a mystery. Even after reviewing the ancestral journals, the forms felt incomplete, sparking a familiar sense of unease. This isn't right. Something about the physical book felt off. This isn't one side of the cover too thick? He found it, hidden between the covers of the seemingly complete manual. He scrutinized the ancient scroll, his expression shifting as the familiar text revealed something unexpected. The calligraphy clearly depicts the 14th form, but the title speaks of 15 in total. This hidden writing suggests an impossible 14th form. While Cereal prepared to leave, the friends shared quiet, supportive words over their genuine bond. The mocking laughter faded, replaced by a sudden, disconcerting realization. The dazzling introduction sets the stage for Juge Cereal, an undeniable presence from the heavenly grace sword peak. As the teasing continued, the young noblewoman watched with a mixture of embarrassment and quiet pleading. The anger boiled over, and the young master crushed the small, cheap trinket in his grip. The shock of the insult clearly registers, leaving her momentarily speechless and distressed. The informant pressed eagerly, seeking the crucial piece of gossip that followed the revelation about the third young master. The servants were completely taken aback by the sudden appearance of the supposed lady. The revelry abruptly halted as an imposing figure spoke, her eyes burning with intense focus. The others gasped, hearing the insult aimed at the young master's sister. That harsh comment about his sister's cooking finally snapped the warrior's composure. The warriors agreed to escort the young master, their commitment sealed by the generous offering of his valuable horse. The teasing continued, turning to Cereal's oddly cherished doll. The warriors' crude joke about the noble lady's cooking earned a swift, furious retort. The conversation shifted from martial prowess to personal curiosities, revealing a deeper connection between the friends. The light-hearted teasing about Cereal's sister continued, revealing their close bond. Cereal's concern was clear, wondering about his friend's unusual interest in the rumored pig. The man's crude joke about the noble lady's cooking drew an astonished, sharp reaction from the listening woman. Chiang Yan offered his honest assessment, admitting his friend's taste in people was perplexing. The light fixtures cast long shadows against the ornate wooden screen, as the conversation shifts suddenly. Chiang Yan mused over Cereal's unexpected admiration for the third young master's fighting prowess. Cereal received the confirmation, a soft, knowing smile touching his lips as he clutched the information, his comfort object nestled close. The warrior's hearty laughter was unrestrained, finding amusement in the noble lady's reputation as a terrible cook. Cereal's friend, Chiang Yan, was still fascinated by his peculiar interests, even joking about his veiled eyes. The escalating mockery of the other warriors boiled over into a sudden, violent outburst. The final farewell was made, and now, the destination awaited beyond the estate gates. The master warrior's grave expression was met by a young woman clinging close, clearly distressed by the preceding events. The warrior's sharp insult, meant to provoke, hung heavy in the air after the feast. Yan Ha happily presented the hand-wrapped sustenance for his journey. Rice balls? You made them yourself? Yan Ha offered the carefully wrapped meal for his journey. May I have some too? Even the warrior is tempted by the sight of food. Yan Ha cheerfully admitted her cooking wasn't worth bragging about as Cereal accepted the packed meal. The young master accepted the kind gesture with genuine joy, promising to savor the meal his escorts had prepared. With a final word, the retinue departed, heading toward the distant horizon. The journey to Yan'an had begun, trading the familiar comfort of home for the open road. The assembled warriors paused their eating, one of them addressing the young master directly. He slumped entirely against the warrior, utterly spent from the effort of the run. The leader, Jang Gang Shong, appeared deeply concerned about the young master's sudden plan. The leader, Jang Gang Shong, looked deeply concerned about the young master's sudden decision to run. The warrior's mocking words about the noble beauty's cooking hit a nerve, eliciting a sharp, defensive retort. The warrior's crude joke about the noble lady's cooking skills earned him an immediate, shocked outburst. The rough laughter of the escort group cut the tension, mocking the sisters' supposed culinary failure. The group was ready to eat, but one warrior boldly asked to share their meager meal. His gaze settled on the fine horse, the very beast they intended to confiscate. The warrior's face contorted in shock, overhearing the disrespectful jab about the noble lady's cooking. Jang Gang Shong, though clearly worried, was clearly struck by Shanwu's unexpected generosity. The teasing continues as Shanwu casually accepts a share of their meal, admitting his sister's cooking skills are lacking. The warrior's stunned gaze betrayed his disbelief at the young master's outrageous proposal. The warrior, Jang Gang Shong, looks worried, perhaps anticipating the young master's difficult journey ahead. The warrior's boast about the noble lady's cooking immediately drew a sharp, offended retort. The warrior's attempt to stop the laughter was immediately met with further mockery. The warrior grimaced, clearly insulted by the implied lack of culinary skill from a noblewoman. The warrior emphatically agrees, accepting the offer with a broad, happy expression. The warrior stared, a sudden tension in his brow, as the young master presented his final offer. The third young master impressed the hardened warriors with his surprising sincerity and sacrifice. The leader, Jang Gang Shong, looked visibly worried about the sudden shift in plans. The grueling physical exertion of the run finally caught up, forcing him to collapse mid-journey. The insults against his sister stoked a fierce, desperate resolve within him. The insult stung, shattering the fragile truce over food. The grueling run had instantly broken him. His warrior guide rushed to support the collapsed young master. The grueling pace instantly took its toll, forcing a momentary, gasping collapse. The sheer physical effort had finally overcome him, collapsing onto the dusty path in utter exhaustion. The brutal reality of the journey ahead crashed down on the young master. The brutal realization hits. He simply couldn't continue this arduous task. Wiping the sweat from his brow, Shanwu offers the handkerchief back to the lady who gave it. The insult about the young master's sister's cooking immediately sparked outrage. The grateful warrior accepted the offered cloth, a small gesture amidst the grand plan. The handkerchief was quickly passed over, the gesture sincere despite the rough circumstances of their farewell. The warrior's sharp remark instantly wiped the smile off the young master's face. The laughter abruptly ceases as a sharp threat cuts through the air. The hardened warriors watched the young master, unsure how this unusual start to the journey would proceed. The warriors teased the young master relentlessly about his sister's supposed culinary failures. The warrior Jang Gang Shong's entourage celebrated their unexpected windfall with loud cheers. The carefree jesting abruptly ended as one of the warriors collapsed, letting out a painful cry. The warrior's loud jest struck Shanwu hard, drawing immediate, furious reaction from the young master. They burst into laughter, utterly unimpressed by the noble lady's culinary skills. The journey continued, the smoke from their small fire rising into the thick, misty forest canopy. The warriors gratefully accepted the offer of food, realizing their journey would involve many outdoor meals. The warrior, amused by the insult, clearly took offense at the casual dismissal of his future brother-in-law's cooking skills. The warrior roared with laughter, finding the idea of a noblewoman cooking hilarious. The warriors around the fire roared with laughter, enjoying the simple meal. The warriors shared a hearty laugh, momentarily easing the tension of their impending journey. Despite the preceding insults, Jang Gang Shong offered a polite, slightly strained smile. My desperate run through the wilderness had brought me to the absolute limit. The horrifying battle continued in the dark woods, as beasts tore into their prey. The innkeeper's lecherous grin immediately changed, startled by the arrival of a captivating woman. A moment later, they arrived at the inn, greeted by a loud, familiar exclamation. A fair young lady arrives, bearing a carefully wrapped gift, her welcoming smile masking unknown intentions. Warrior Gong laughed heartily at the accusation of settling down, embracing the transient life of a wanderer. The campfires crackled as the men settled in, their tense journey temporarily forgotten in the glow of camaraderie. The lingering pain of loss was suddenly shattered by a rude interruption. The bandit chief's greedy welcome abruptly shifts as his eyes fixate on a new arrival. The relentless journey continued, a blur of speed and dust as they pressed onward. As the drinking celebration began, a sudden, wild figure charged into their midst. Warrior Jang, recovering, watched as the young master began his intense cultivation. The sound of steel meeting steel finally brought back a familiar thrill to his blood. The lingering conversation about settling down was abruptly interrupted by a new arrival. The joy of the journey was infectious. Even the stoic Warrior Gong managed a rare, pleased smile. Warrior Gong, perhaps finally letting his guard down, allows a genuinely happy, relieved expression to surface. The ambush was swift, sending the young lord tumbling forward onto the dirt. The tension snapped as the bandits spotted their prey. The bandit chief's sickening grin confirmed their greed, while his companions flanked him with predatory intent. The bandit chief barked orders, demanding the group surrender instantly or face swift violence. The bandit chief, Mak Gusam, stood before them, radiating crude menace and gripping his massive axe. The bandit recoiled in shock as the impossible news registered in his mind. The bandit leader recognized the stunned expression of his subordinate, calling out his name urgently. He'd heard whispers of the Noko bandits, but this leader seemed different from ordinary rabble. The bandits were utterly stunned by the sudden, fierce counterattack. The bandit chief, Mak Gusong, greeted them with a leering, predatory smile. The bandit chief declared his outrageous toll, everything they owned. Even as they toasted their arrival, an unwelcome interruption was already approaching. The young lord, delighted by the prospect of a drink, signals their arrival to the group. The confrontation had begun. A massive bandit leader now stood before him, flanked by his men. That repulsive grin returned as the bandit chief spied a new arrival. The intimidating presence of the Noko bandit chief, Mak Gusam, finally arrived with his men. The bandit chief was furious, realizing the young master was not easily fooled by mere titles. He frantically threw the clan token toward the bandit leader, hoping to prove his identity. The bandit chief, Mak Gusam, roared, his crude authority echoing the menace of his followers. The bandits reveled in their victory until a familiar, sharp grin cut through the chaos. The bandit chief, Mak Gusam, met the young lord's surprising claim with utter disbelief. The sound of impact rings out as Yan Ha launches his attack, meeting the bandit chief's anticipation with ruthless force. The ensuing chaos erupted as the bandits finally lunged, their bravado turning into desperate aggression. The bandit chief held up the golden token, his suspicious query hanging in the air as the protagonist reacted. The clash erupted instantly, the silence of the forest shattered by the brutal force of combat. The bandit chief recoiled in agony as the unseen force struck him squarely. The bandits erupted in shock as the third son of the Shanru clan demonstrated terrifying power. The young master's composure remained unshaken, even as the thugs closed in for the attack. The young master requested a blade, and the immediate threat of bandits forced a swift exchange. The butcher rejoices at the familiar air of the battlefield once more. The sudden, overwhelming force of the strike brought forth only screams of disbelief and pain. The ambushers recognized the young lord's identity, their initial aggression momentarily faltering with shock. The sudden, brutal violence reignited the familiar, chilling joy of battle within him. The taste of combat, long absent, now flooded his senses, confirming his purpose. The battlefield seemed to welcome his very being, stirring his soul once more. Amidst the carnage, the young master felt the familiar thrill of the battlefield stirring within him once more. The relentless journey continued, pressing onward through the lush, indifferent wilderness toward Yan'an. The battlefield rejoiced, welcoming the familiar taste of combat as bodies littered the foggy clearing. Even as he fell, the young man cried out, "I'm glad," a strange reaction to defeat. The butcher's terrifying reputation precedes him. The remaining bandits look on in stunned horror. The veteran warrior, Jang, suddenly recoiled, his face a mask of surprised recognition. The excited mercenary grinned, immediately focusing on the attractive newcomer. Warrior Gong's jovial anticipation was quickly broken by a sudden arrival. The overwhelming battle concluded swiftly, leaving the young master smiling amidst the fallen bandits. The warrior Jang playfully deflected the question, attributing the power to an illusionary technique rather than his true cultivation level. The terrifying display of power left the bandits utterly stunned. Recognizing the renowned technique, the bandit chief let out a hearty laugh, clearly entertained by their predicament. The warrior Jang explained his own limited cultivation, a familiar echo of the protagonist's own desperate past. The weary warrior Gong couldn't hide his relief at the generous offer of a final drink before their mission concluded. The memories of his past struggles resurfaced as he reflected on the necessity of learning, even the basics. The mercenary gave a knowing, almost sinister smile, confirming their agreement. The haggard warriors urged the exhausted young master to rest as they finally reached Yunnan province. Because he lacked a proper foundation, his efforts never bore full fruit. The relief of arrival was immediately overshadowed by the bandits' predatory gaze. Yet Warrior Gong held on to his festive mood. Warrior Gong's eyes lit up at the mention of drinks and generosity. The endless journey finally led them to the gates of Yunnan province after 9 grueling days. The innkeepers, thrilled by the generous offer, eagerly welcomed the young master. The grateful warriors cheered the young lord's generosity as they settled in for the night. The innkeeper's delighted greeting confirmed the arrival of a desirable guest. The arrival of a beautiful woman brought an immediate, appreciative grin to the innkeeper's face. The heavy drinking continued, a brief respite before the inevitable end of their journey together. Warrior Gong's jovial demeanor shines as he toasts the group, celebrating the successful journey's end. The mercenaries, pleased by the generous offer, enthusiastically welcomed the attention of the young lord. The bandit chief's crude remark immediately draws a pleased, albeit slightly dazed, flush to the newcomer's face. Their journey ended in Yunnan, finally securing an inn after 9 grueling days. The confrontation ceased as the seasoned warrior recognized the distinctive grin of his acquaintance. The intended volunteer stood quietly, a solemn look contrasting with the boisterous companion beside her. The boisterous praise was met with surprise, as the young master seemed caught off guard by the attention. The group roared with laughter, their boisterous mood momentarily obscuring the previous tension. The enthusiastic companion readily accepted the offer to stay, while the mysterious figure observed from the side. They tried to brush off the obvious weight loss with forced laughter and flattery. The convivial atmosphere quickly shifted as she revealed her serious intentions. Her quiet contemplation was broken as the shocking declaration hung heavy in the air. Lady Qiangyan's casual mention of volunteering for the front line met with utter disbelief. The company exchanged subtle glances, digesting the news of her drastic intentions while noticing the physical toll of her supposed training. Completely flustered by their compliments, she quickly covered her face with her cup. With the decision made to return, the path forward begins now. Her resolve wavered, a single ellipsis hanging in the silent tension of the moment. The earnest praise from his companion seemed to amuse the newly lean young master Shanwu. He played off their praise with a hearty, dismissive laugh, adjusting his hair self-consciously. The jovial atmosphere continued, but the lady's distant expression hinted at the secrets weighing on her mind. The joyous outburst continues, though the lady's previous announcement hangs heavy in the air. She paused, her hands resting lightly as the attendant eagerly presented the drink. The decision was made. She would not enter the front lines. Her protective duty felt suddenly lessened. The unexpected encounter left the others at the table quite stunned by her declaration. He feigned delight, accepting the flattery as his transformation was praised. The commotion outside forces a hasty retreat as danger looms near the inn. The confrontation ended, and the young lady stepped away, letting out a slow breath. The abrupt threat outside snapped her contemplation short, pulling her back to the chaos. A soft whisper escapes the sleeping youth. Mandu. The casual demeanor faded as she recalled every detail she had uncovered. All these accumulated details, the uncanny likeness and subtle mannerisms, only fueled her growing suspicion. The ambush was brutal, leaving one of Brother Yang's companions utterly defenseless. The decision made, the protagonist stepped away, only to be observed by a shocked, familiar face watching from the shadows, peeking out from behind the tree. This sudden confrontation left her completely stunned. He laughed heartily, perhaps relieved to have deflected the attention from his announcement. Standing amidst the dark woods, this familiar figure paused, ready to speak their thoughts aloud. In the moonlit woods, a terrified cry pierces the stillness. The unexpected sound of impact signals an immediate threat nearby. The immediate danger loomed as a monstrous shadow, wreathed in dark power, lunged forward. The swift, decisive strike left the bandit completely exposed, with no time to brace for impact. The attacker ready to final, decisive blow, his grip tight on the hilt. The attacker's move was impossibly fast, a blur of energy slamming into the target. The sudden, chilling arrival broke the quiet. An imposing shadow emerged from the darkness. His declaration to volunteer for the front elicited an immediate, horrified reaction. The monstrous attacker descended, enveloped in dark energy, directly confronting the poised young lady. The shocking realization shattered her calm. She saw the swift, brutal attack land. The attacker surged forward with brutal force, intent on ending the fight immediately. Ignoring the sudden chaos, the assailant unleashes a decisive, brutal strike against the fallen man. The sudden, violent intrusion shattered their retreat, freezing everyone in stunned horror. The sudden, brutal strike left the hulking figure momentarily stunned, screaming a single word of pure outrage. The colossal figure hurtles downward, its muscular form radiating dark energy. The attack was swift, a focused burst of blue energy answering the unseen threat. The hulking assailant surges forward, radiating dark intent, meeting the defender's swift, azure counter-strike head-on. The sudden, unseen attack left Yang Ga reeling and shocked in the fading light. The abrupt, horrifying ambush shattered the calm, drawing a shocked gasp. The sudden clash erupted as the shadowy figure intercepted the brutal attack. The monstrous brute meets the smaller attacker's desperate, glancing blow head-on. The assailant, momentarily stunned, frantically brandished a hidden knife in the eerie darkness. The swift attack connected, eliciting a choked gasp from the monstrous figure. The villain's sudden, brutal strike caught the intended victim completely off guard. The brute's grip tightens, readying a vicious, decisive strike against the fallen man. The horrifying rictus of the attacker splits wide, savoring the moment before the strike. The immediate threat froze the supposed victim, his face a mask of pure shock and terror. The cloaked protector struck with shocking force, slamming the brute backward. The fight escalates instantly as the masked figure strikes the monstrous attacker with blinding speed. The immediate threat was clear, demanding immediate action to shield the others. The monstrous strike found its mark, silencing the attacker instantly. The attacker's swift, vicious strike left Yang Ga stunned and vulnerable to the follow-up blow. The hulking assailant charged forward, closing the distance against the stunned martial artists in the dark woods. Pulled back into the action, the hero stands ready, drawing their blade despite the man clinging desperately behind. The hidden attacker struck with sudden, shocking force, overwhelming their target in a crimson explosion. The sudden, aggressive attack left him stunned, instinctively raising his hand to ward off the blow. The sudden, brutal strike brought him to his knees with a pained gasp. The sudden, violent attack paralyzed her with shock and alarm. The terrifying noise rips through the silence, echoing his shock and panic. The monstrous attacker lunges, its wicked claws ripping through the air towards the defenseless figure below. The monstrous rage erupted, his body straining under a horrifying transformation. He pressed a finger to his lips, urgently signaling the need for absolute silence. The monstrous presence loomed over them, an overwhelming shadow of muscle and dark aura. His ominous presence lingered, sparking a chilling realization in the observing party. The shadowy figure clamps down, suffocating any potential scream. The captive fears the worst. The monstrous figure looms above as the young disciple clutches the injured person, checking on their safety amidst the chaos. The monstrous grin splits his face, fueled by insane glee as his plan takes shape. The monster lunges, its savage focus locking onto the defenseless civilians in the distance. The battle rages on, but the sheer power of the assailant leaves the guards reeling and scattered in defeat. The horrific results of the monster's presence were laid bare. Another life extinguished. The shock on their faces was immediate, witnessing the proximity of the danger. The hulking figure effortlessly repelled the paltry attack, the surrounding chaos a testament to his power. Sweat beaded on his brow as he grappled fiercely, struggling against the overwhelming strength. Sweat beaded on his brow as he desperately fumbled with a small, crucial object. The plan was set. Create a diversion to draw the monster's attention. The explosive impact of the blow echoed violently through the tense room. Their terror was palpable. Now trapped as the true danger closed in, panic erupted as some citizens desperately cried out for help and the establishment's owner. The realization strikes him. Silence alone is not enough. The monstrous warrior, now exposed, affirms his goal. Survival for the remaining people. The monster draws in a ragged breath, focusing his terrible senses despite his injuries. The sudden noise rips through the tense silence, confirming the presence of movement. The desperate ploy begins as he screams, sending objects scattering across the floor. The creature moves with unnatural speed, its stitched grin an image of pure, unsettling power. The initial shock gives way to the realization. The battle has begun in earnest amidst the overturned furniture. The weight of their shared peril settled heavily on the onlookers, their shock palpable. He steels himself, clenching his fists, ready to execute his desperate plan. The sudden, violent thwack of the overturned stool shattered the fragile silence. A jarring, guttural sound erupts as the monster pauses, its scarred face suggesting immense, painful awareness. His desperate plea was immediately silenced, his fate now in his companion's cruel grip. A heavy hand clamped over the screaming man's mouth, stifling the panic before it could alert the beast. The immediate need for distraction hung heavy, desperate for any sound source. With a battle cry, the swift warrior descends in a flash of crackling blue energy. The calculated diversion was in motion. Now came the desperate, physical strike. With the plan in motion, the agile swordsman launched himself, closing the distance in a blinding strike. The sound effect signifies a precise, controlled landing. The distraction must now be set in motion. The desperate plan was set. Create chaos to draw the monster's attention. The clash erupts, the sound of metal meeting brute force echoing sharply. The moment of commitment arrives. With focused fury, he lunges toward his risky gambit. The desperate cries of the terrified crowd only fueled the creature's predatory focus. The terrified man barely stifled a choked gasp, while his companion spoke in an unnervingly calm tone. However, merely staying quiet won't halt this monster's advance. The monstrous attacker closes in, and a sudden, terrifying realization dawns. I must eliminate this threat immediately. The immediate danger was clear. The youth drew breath, bracing himself for the critical move. His plan required a distraction. These firecrackers were the key to drawing the monster's attention. The diversion created, the master strategist lunges forward, the sword a flash of light against the encroaching shadow. The final step of the reckless plan was set. One sudden sound to draw its attention. The plan was set. Create a diversion by throwing the bottles just as he approached. With the monster alerted, the remaining disciples and onlookers scattered, chaos erupting around the overturned furniture. With a powerful sweep, he unleashes his arsenal of weighted coin strings toward the floor. With his desperate strategy formulated, the protagonist steels himself for the perilous advance. The decoy was set. Now he planted his feet with explosive force. The planned distraction worked, echoing across the hall with a sharp, destructive crash. The raw power flared as he declared his plan, pulling the nervous ally forward. His desperate reach signals a terrifying realization, a chilling, Ominous sound signals the start of the dangerous distraction. The pleas of the terrified civilians were quickly silenced by the desperate need for absolute quiet. He held the monstrous man's scarred face, a desperate proximity forged in chaos. His wide, panicked eyes reflected the sudden, overwhelming dread gripping him. The monster seemed to be savoring the silence, concentrating its senses before striking again. Their parting words exchanged. She gently touched the scars that marked his face, a silent acknowledgement of their shared journey. The sheer shock of the confrontation drained the color from his face. The monstrous twin scythe leader grinned, relishing the chaos they were about to unleash. The decisive departure was marked by an imposing footfall, leaving the concerned onlookers reeling. The terrifying confrontation on the battlefield had begun, forcing an immediate, desperate draw of steel. The warrior lunges forward, attempting to secure the hulking target while his ally charges in for a strike. Mayugium roared, realizing the enemy forces were overwhelming the trapped soldiers. The twin scythe wielders reveled in their cruel sport, cornering the terrified soldiers. The demonic tormentor forces the captives' eyes wide, demanding attention as the battle intensifies. The sudden, agonizing scream ripped through the quiet exchange, leaving the young man utterly shocked. The chaotic clash erupted with brutal force. With the foe subdued, the young warrior screamed his final, desperate command. The warrior stared, absorbing the incredible power that was about to be unleashed. The departing warrior's parting gifts spark a new, intense line of thought. With the farewell complete, she gathers her resolve, igniting her inner power. The warrior unleashed a surge of glowing blue energy, driving the blade deep into the monstrous flesh. The sheer force of the strike drove the blade deep into the man's flesh, his body arching in final agony. The unexpected attack strikes, causing a choked cry of pain under the overwhelming pressure. The warrior pressed the blade into his own chest, accepting his fate to offer a final gift. With the parting pleasantries exchanged, the weight of their joint weapons signaled the immediate need for vigilance. The terrifying shockwave of impact resonates as the hand slams hard against the unforgiving ground. The grim finality of the blow resonated through the silent room. The warrior, still gripping the blade, seemed overwhelmed by the incredible parting gifts. The warriors watched, utterly stunned by the unparalleled generosity and sincerity of their departing friend. The exhausted soldiers, perhaps casualties of the escalating threat, are laid low on the cold ground. The solemn farewell concludes as the martial artists bow low in gratitude for the parting gifts. With the farewells concluded, the trio stood solemnly, watching the benefactor depart toward the open road. The martial artist, having just gifted invaluable techniques, turned to depart, leaving the others stunned by his generosity. The warmth of their shared fellowship hung in the air as the farewell continued. The warrior offered his hand, a final gesture of goodwill as he prepared to depart. The gesture solidified their parting, a warm farewell sealing a brief, significant bond. With sincere parting words exchanged, he clutched his robes, eager to begin his journey. With a soft gasp, the carefully prepared collection of martial knowledge was finally passed into their hands. They accepted the precious, life-changing martial arts gift with deep gratitude. The recipient, stunned by the generous gift, could only express his shock at such an unprecedented handout. They studied the gifted manuals, faces showing shock and awe at the priceless knowledge being shared. The warrior, holding the treasured manual, seemed surprised by the generous gift. The mysterious warrior smiles, his intense gaze holding the key to the next secret. The warrior accepted the final scrolls, his expression a mixture of gratitude and astonishment at the unexpected generosity. We worked well together and fought for our lives. Are we not friends? Warrior Gong clutched the volumes, overwhelmed by the extraordinary generosity shown to them. With parting gifts exchanged, the protagonist prepares to leave his new acquaintances behind. The warrior beams, clearly satisfied with the gifts bestowed upon his new acquaintances. With farewells exchanged and powerful gifts bestowed, the journey continues onward. As the warrior Gong departed, the profound gifts he bestowed lingered in the air. The warrior admitted his mistake, earning a knowing smile in return. With the parting gifts exchanged, the two warriors continued down the path, their conversation drawing to a close. She gazed out at the vast landscape, ready to depart and continue her journey alone. The chaotic melee intensifies as the warrior presses their advantage. Amidst the blood-red inferno, the scholar, acknowledging their swift departure, offered a final, heartfelt farewell. The refusal hung heavy in the air as the tense silence was broken by a sharp, percussive sound. A final gesture of respect as he prepares to take his leave. This genuine display of camaraderie was met with awe from the onlookers. Accepting the apology, he bows formally, his resolve cemented. Jingling is called out, signaling the abrupt end of their peaceful farewells and the imminent clash of war. A sickening strike pierces deep, the smile of the attacker twisted in triumph. As the farewells concluded, the danger immediately resurfaced with a cry of protest and the sound of conflict erupting nearby. The menacing blood cultist leers closer, his sinister intent clear as the young woman recoils in terror. The vicious second of the twin sides, Guyojil, closes in, holding his captive in a terrifying headlock. The final warning flare shot skyward, signaling imminent danger as they reached the battlefield. With the gifts bestowed, the warrior offered a final, hopeful farewell before departing. The warrior, still clutching his sickles, confirms that reinforcements for the besieged soldiers will arrive soon. Her resolve firm, she watches as her former companions launch themselves forward. The sudden rush of confrontation shattered the farewell peace, as a startling sound broke the forest calm. The maniacal laughter signaled the deadly clash as the warrior's sickle met the blinding energy. The fierce clash erupts as the warriors press their advantage, shouting their intent for the final blow. Their sincere goodbyes were abruptly shattered by the sickening sound of steel clashing against steel. The encounter shifts abruptly as a cackling demon launches an attack, blade flashing from above. The ambush was swift, turning the forest path into a flurry of steel and frantic movement. Her conviction solidified. She readied her weapon, the heavy breathing showing her exertion. Warrior Jang watched him leave, marveling at the generosity, until a sudden, sharp sound broke the stillness. As the warrior soared above the tree line, the sound of his swift departure echoed through the quiet woods. With farewells exchanged, the scene shifts to the ominous Yunnan battlefield. The veteran leader's face registered shock as the unexpected reinforcements arrived, heralded by loud, alarming sounds. The terrifying Dain King Hawk descends from the bright sky, a dark shadow amidst the canopy. His cold, determined eyes assess the situation as the newcomers arrived. The chaos subsides, giving way to the title card, Reborn on the demonic cult battlefield. The captain's unexpected question cut through the lingering tension. As the Dain King Hawk rushed forward, a comrade shouted for instructions amidst the chaos. The captain's arrival momentarily halted the squabble, but the tension remained thick. Dain King Hawk's lethal strike connected, forcing the foe to recoil with a pained cry. The fourth squad leader grips his weapon, preparing to meet the incoming, swirling purple attack. The clash of their powerful sword strikes erupts in a blinding flash of energy. The fourth squad leader stared, his expression hardened by the recent loss and confrontation. The Dain King Hawk delivers a swift, devastating blow, sending his opponent tumbling. The fierce Dain King Hawk unleashes a blinding, earth-shattering strike with his crescent blades. The vice leader's fierce defense of Seol Peng only invited further scorn. The fierce declaration of Sword Diktang echoes as the powerful figure descends from the canopy. Dain King Hawk descends, a look of grim determination masking the shock of facing such an opponent. The clash of power resonated through the dense woods as the fight reached its climax. The clash reverberated, a violent intersection of momentum and steel. The exhausted survivor confirms they are moving on, hoisting their burden. As the enemy gloated, the figure in white prepared for confrontation, drawing power from the surrounding nature. The captain watched impassively as the conflict between her subordinates finally subsided. As the villain made their move, the desperate guards could only watch her flee deeper into the woods. The fourth squad leader intercepts the immediate threat, plunging down toward the pursuing figures. The captain's triumphant sneer confirmed the enemy had been utterly subdued. The vice leader stopped the escalating confrontation, stepping between the two furious squad leaders. The dying King Hawk intercepts the fleeing enemy, his power radiating outward in a blinding flash. The vicious attack landed true, eliciting a final, choked gasp of agony. "I'll unlock your chi flow, so just hold on," the rescuer assured the injured woman. As the final captor was stunned by the newcomer, two panicked figures rushed past, identifying the terrifying arrival. The initial confrontation gives way to a brutal realization. They walked directly into an ambush. Dying King Hawk swoops in with a sinister, triumphant smirk, declaring her intent to crush the demonic leaders. The clash erupted violently, their weapons meeting in a blinding arc of concentrated force. A frantic shout cut through the dust, warning the others of the approaching danger from above. The dying King Hawk, Mayugium, drew his blade, ready to face the ambushers. Dying King Hawk's devastating strike tears through the air, meeting a desperate, earth-shattering counter. The enemy's swift landing was immediately met by the skilled, low stance of a waiting warrior. The ambushers moved swiftly, their intent clear as the first Dragon Corps member prepared to engage. The intensity of the battle climaxed as the sword sliced through the air, leaving behind trails of blinding light and blood. The vice leader firmly interjected, stopping the escalating conflict between the two squad leaders. The shocked subordinate pointed out the terrifying presence of the famed sword Gyosun. Interrupting the shouting match, the fourth squad leader steps forward, ready to defend his subordinate. The fourth squad leader glared, leveling his crossbow, still reeling from the previous confrontation. The fourth squad leader, Dying King Hawk, lunges forward, metal sickles drawn for a brutal clash. Despite the searing pain of his wound, the fourth squad leader was ready to lash out again. The pursuit was on, the Dying King Hawk launching himself into the fray. The tense moment of exchange breaks as Mayugium absorbs the criticism, his expression unreadable. The raw grief overwhelms the survivor as they clutch their fallen comrade, a desperate plea echoing in the silence. The tense silence broke as Seol Pung rushed forward, desperate to apologize for his tardiness. Furious, the captain continued his relentless accusation, stressing the missed opportunity. Under the vice leader's tense scrutiny, the fourth squad leader showed the strain of his recent loss. The fourth squad leader screams, completely enraged by the insult. The tense confrontation pauses as Captain Fung Yang finally arrives on the scene. The vice leader's words echo, showing her internal conflict over the losses. Dying King Hawk watched the raw violence unfolding, his expression hardening as his attention shifted. The tension breaks as the fourth squad leader steps forward, defending his subordinate from further insult. The vice leader paused the argument, demanding respect for Seol Pung's fallen comrade. The vice leader stepped forward, placing a restraining hand on the furious fourth squad leader. The vice leader stepped forward, trying to mediate the tense situation with an earnest plea. The fourth squad leader, Mayugium, watched the confrontation with a knowing, almost smug expression. The tension eased slightly after the apology, but the captain remained contemplative. The captain offered a final, pointed question about the new recruits' impending arrival. Despite the shared losses, the fourth squad leader mocked Seol Pung's misfortune. The captain's calm assertion contrasted sharply with the heated exchange, demanding immediate resolution. The captain listened, then turned to the topic of the new recruits. The clash had momentarily settled, the commanding presence of the 13th Soaring Dragon Corps taking hold. The tension eased slightly as the captain pondered the arrival of the new recruits. The grand headquarters of the Soaring Dragon Corps loomed under the bright sky. The stern figures finally descend to meet the lone figure waiting on the vast floor. As Jiangyan entered, the observer reflected on the unchanging nature of things, even here at the front. The vice captain's smug grin was met with Jiangyan's wide-eyed surprise. Hyun Yangbo, the vice captain, greeted them with an overly familiar and jovial wave. The imposing figures of the 13th Corps leadership finally assemble before the recruits. The final assessment seems to place this moment at the threshold of true impact. Covering his mouth in shock, The arrival of the infamous squad leader was clearly not what he expected. The vice captain, Hyun Yongbo, makes his grand entrance, instantly challenging Cheonghyun's knowledge. The vice captain, Hyun Yonggo, stepped forward, clearly expecting immediate recognition. The memory of the carnage, the sheer, bloody weight of the battlefield, finally caught up to him. The vice captain of the 13th Corps introduces himself with an air of self-importance. The vice captain, Hyun Yongbo, greets them with an overly cheerful smile. The vice captain, Hyun Yongbo, finally arrives, introducing the gravity of the situation to the newcomers. The chaos of introductions settled as the vice captain's harsh judgment was finally delivered. Cheongyun's composure finally broke, witnessing the vice captain's immediate aggression toward Shanwoo-jin. The aggressive confrontation concluded as the leader finally arrived at the 7th Squad's quarters. The vice captain's subtle, strained gesture was met with muffled laughter from the other recruit, showing his attempt to hide his amusement. The vice captain, exasperated by the ensuing argument, decisively declares their next move. The vice captain finally reviews the documents, perhaps anticipating the top talent he is about to meet. The vice captain, Hyun Yongbo, introduces himself with an almost theatrical flourish, his smile suggesting prior renown. The vice captain reviews his roster, making mental notes of the new arrivals. Cheongyun's composure wavered slightly as the vice captain began listing the new recruits. The vice captain registers Cheongyun's unorthodox background, intrigued by her presence near the dangerous front lines. The vice captain reviewed the document, his expression stern, as Cheongyun waited silently. She introduced herself simply as Cheongyun, yet my memory hinted at a much grander status. The vice captain finally reveals himself, but her expression remains guarded, assessing the unknown man. Hyun Yongbo, the vice captain, finally confronts Cheongyun, inspecting her paperwork with a skeptical eye. Hamyun lets out a strained groan, dismissing the previous praise as utter falsehood. The vice captain aggressively demands her allegiance be declared amidst mounting suspicion. Despite the vice captain's bold introduction, Cheongyun maintained her composure, utterly unimpressed. The vice captain introduced the first two names, their identities noted with subtle surprise. The vice captain, clearly flustered by the unexpected news, reacts with stunned disbelief. The vice captain, Hyun Yongbo, finally makes his grand entrance to address the new recruits. The supposed beatdown immediately shifts into a bizarre, almost celebratory outburst from the aggressor. The vice captain grimly reviewed the roster, his expression betraying whatever shocking names he was reading. The official title page signals the brutal start of this conflict. The vice captain finishes his introductions, guiding the new recruits toward the waiting quarters. The imposing headquarters awaited, a silent sentinel above the dusty courtyard. The vice captain's dramatic entrance was immediately met with disbelief from the newcomer. The sudden violence shocked everyone. Even the squad leader looked disturbed by the brute force unleashed. The memory of avoiding Ma Yugyam's path was still fresh, but now, a strange destiny placed them all together. The vice captain's arrogant, familiar gesture was met only with stony silence from the newcomer. Despite the painful transformation, the darkness of their cruelty still lingered, making death seem like a welcome release. The squad leader walks forward, a strange sense of relief washing over him as he returns to the 7th Squad. The vice captain finally arrived, announced with a dramatic entrance to the waiting recruits. The vice captain, Hyun Yongbo, finally reveals himself with a boisterous welcome. The arrival of Hyun Yonggo, the swift falcon sword, introduces a familiar, yet unexpectedly missed, face to the waiting recruits. The squad members immediately began sizing up the newcomers with thinly veiled contempt. He noted the continued decline in the core average age, contrasting it with his past life's observations. The imposing vice captain Hyun Yongbo introduced himself, immediately challenging the newcomer's reputation. The vice captain, Hyun Yongbo, introduces himself with a confident, almost smug air. The vice captain, Hyun Yongbo, arrived, his presence commanding immediate, if slightly faded, attention. The vice captain bursts in with intimidating presence, yet the protagonist remains unfazed by his reputation. The vice captain, Hyun Yongbo, finally makes his grand, confident entrance. The imposing Vice Captain Hyun Yongbo finally arrives, initiating their formal, if strained, introduction. Hyun Yongbo's smug expression contrasts sharply with the recruit's wide-eyed shock. The promise of a beating was violently fulfilled, a raw impact echoing through the squad quarters. The promised beating begins with an explosive, brutal strike against the weakling Shan Woo-jin. The confrontation escalates instantly as a blinding force connects. The victor, breathing heavily, looks down at the defeated bully with cold resolution. The vice captain arrived, trying to make an impression, but his proud introduction fell flat. "What am I doing?" He spat out his earlier insults, demanding a reaction. Despite his earlier bravado, the vice captain began to sweat under the interrogation about Chiang's background. Having asserted his dominance, he now contemplates whether to extend his newfound authority to the others. The arrival of the vice captain sparks an unsettling recognition in Chiang's mind. The triumphant arrival of a key player brings a sinister sense of finality to the confrontation. The vice captain's imposing presence cuts through the tension, a stark contrast to the recruit's apprehension. The standoff ended with a satisfied smile from Shan Yu-jin, standing beside the tense Ju Tai-kyung. Shan Yu-jin's audacity, born from his past life, left Ju Tai-kyung momentarily speechless. Finally, the ringleader reveals himself with a deceptively gentle smile. Bai Sa-young cheerfully confirms his readiness for the rigorous training ahead. The physical toll of the training showed, yet Seol-pung brushed off his discomfort with fierce determination. The others were already impressed, but Bai Sa-young maintained his overconfident facade. Ju Tai-kyung remained silent, a flicker of arrogance showing through his composure. The next day, the brutal training session begins, testing their mettle. Ju Tai-kyung, the ringleader, finally steps forward, accompanied by his smug lackeys and a chilling, serpentine aura. The memory of a lost love fueled a burning resolve in his clenched fist. This time, he vowed, the tragedy would not repeat itself. Despite the bravado, the internal calculation revealed a stark reality about the power gap. The confrontation hangs heavy as the newcomers enter, their expressions unreadable. Despite the grueling training, Bai Sa-young maintained his bravado, claiming it was easy. Ju Tai-kyung's insult had ignited a fire, drawing Seol-pung's enraged reaction. Ju Tai-kyung's arrogant grin was met with Jin's unflinching gaze, confirming his identity. The realization of their shared history momentarily softened Bai Sa-young's triumphant demeanor. Shan Yu-jin laughs with genuine excitement, his past struggles fueling his current joy. Ju Tai-kyung, enraged, reached for his blade, ready to strike Shan Yu-jin down immediately. The initial, brutal training session had left Seol-pung and Bai Sa-young exhilarated but physically drained. The newfound comrades shared a moment of enthusiastic camaraderie after securing their training pact. The intensity in his eyes confirmed he was enjoying their small victory over Ju Tai-kyung. The aggressive tension held as Shan Yu-jin's hand gripped the hilt, challenging Ju Tai-kyung's own posture. Ju Tai-kyung stood over the fallen, his rage palpable as he confronted the newcomer. The absurdity of his grand dream was met with an excited, genuine laugh from Shan Yu-jin. He asked the rhetorical question, picturing the praise he craved. Bai Sa-young's joy at reuniting with comrades, even under these intense circumstances, was palpable. Bai Sa-young, ecstatic over the shared past and future training, beams with sheer joy. Seol-pung, witnessing the agreement, could only stare as Shan Yu-jin confidently faced the deadly wager. The ordeal of the initial training was nothing to the veteran of a past life. Bai Sa-young, delighted by the unfolding drama, saw Shan Yu-jin as an unexpected ally. The former Bai Jongman disciple, thrilled by the chance for revenge, beams alongside Shan Yu-jin. For someone from the destroyed Bai Jongman sect, this grueling training was nothing but simple fare. Seol-pung stepped forward, but Ju Tai-kyung demanded he stand down, determined to cross the line himself. Ju Tai-kyung's pride, fueled by his sect's heritage, visibly shattered under Shan Yu-jin's casual dismissal. Ju Tai-kyung, the famed swordfly, stepped forward, his pride demanding an audience with the newcomers. Shan Yu-jin, basking in the glory of his victory, leans into his new comrade with intense satisfaction. As Ju Tai-kyung attempts to leave, a panicked voice calls out, urging him to wait. Bai Sa-yeol and the others celebrated their success, genuinely admiring Shan Yu-jin. Bai Sa-yong smiled, pleased to have found a kindred spirit who shared a past connection with Ju Tai-kyung's sect. His enthusiasm was infectious, cementing their newfound camaraderie following the confrontation. Shan Yu-jin is warmly embraced by his new comrades, Sa-yong-ga and Bai Zhongguan. Haunted by past failure, Shan Yu-jin vows to prevent any more deaths this time. Bai Sa-yong, now excited, confirmed the shared suffering to come. His triumphant laughter confirmed the successful settling of old scores. The newly acquainted comrades discussed their impending harsh training regimen. The physical ordeal was nothing compared to his past life. Shocked by the sudden turn of events, Bai Sa-yong is momentarily stunned by Shan Yu-jin's bold assurance. The shared past fueled his easy confidence. He'd already endured this pain before. Bai Sa-yong's cheerful demeanor hid his vengeful past, much to Seol Pung's shock. Bai Sa-yong reveled in the satisfying resolution of his feud with Ju Tai-kyung. Ju Tai-kyung's smug confidence only fueled Shan Yu-jin's resolve. He responded with a dismissive query. Bai Sa-yong exuded confidence, clearly enjoying the prospect of this grueling shared training. Despite the grueling training, Bai Sa-yong and Shan Yu-jin remained surprisingly unfazed. The hard-won victory over Ju Tai-kyung had completely energized Shan Yu-jin. Despite his claims of enduring the hardship before, the sheer intensity of the chief's training visibly stunned him. Bai Sa-yong, overjoyed by the turn of events, expressed his immediate admiration for Shan Yu-jin. Seol Pung admits his grand plan for smashing cultists was actually a necessary deception. The training began in earnest, with Shan Yu-jin expressing extreme, almost manic excitement for the ordeal. Seol Pung quickly reassures his comrade that this intense training is nothing compared to his past suffering. Shan Yu-jin beamed, excited to finally put his past life's experience to the test. The promise of an epic title hung in the air, leaving one subordinate visibly stunned. The ordeal was finally complete, and Shan Yu-jin flashed a knowing, satisfied smile. The dense, sun-dappled forest path became the stage for their confrontation. Despite the brutal training, Bai Sa-yong boasts his resilience, comparing it to stale porridge. The brutal training began, yet Shan Yu-jin found the meager rations almost trivial. His excitement boiling over, the corpulent man launched himself toward Seol Pung, ready to begin the ordeal. Seol Pung's final training push began, a brutal awakening from his past life suffering. The grueling training had finally concluded, leaving Shan Yu breathless but alive. The relentless cycle of grueling training continued, marked only by the changing light of dawn. The sudden, overwhelming threat loomed, forcing a desperate, trembling reach for safety. The squad members reacted to the terrifying realization of what was approaching. He clutched his chest, the weight of past regrets and current chaos pressing down. The commander's dismissive, sharp query cuts through the previous exchange. The warning of the impending disaster hung heavy, yet he felt powerless to act. Biseung finally lost his reason and charged, but the result was obvious. Even after his disgrace, Biseung's life remained a cycle of hardship and failure among his peers. But this unexpected popularity was directed at mosquitoes, not women. The squad leader, comparing himself to the genius squad leader Han Gyoshin, still felt a flicker of pride in his own skill. The group was abruptly interrupted by the sheer scale of the incoming threat. The squad leader greets everyone with a broad, friendly smile and a respectful bow. Even as they mocked their squad leader's supposed weakness, the group seemed unimpressed by his current display. As the vice leader recoiled, the squad leader offered a disarming, slightly smug smile. Their lighthearted banter, full of teasing, was abruptly cut short. The overwhelming tide of gangui assaults was a tragedy that even his foresight could not prevent. That agonizing thought echoed, "If only I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be going through this hell." The dire warning of the impending disaster hung heavy in his mind, a crushing, inevitable reality. The sudden onslaught of Gangui left him reeling from the coming tragedy. The dire warning cut through the previous banter, confirming the massive, unseen threat approaching. His relentless tormentor, now showing off, mocked Biseung's persistent frustration. The opponent's laughter echoed cruelly as Biseung faced overwhelming odds. The protagonist burst from the foliage, driven by a desperate intensity. The squad leader was already issuing urgent commands, but the sheer number of enemies was overwhelming. The madman insists, offering him a path forward, a return to cultivation. A realization dawned, triggered by the overwhelming swarm of danger closing in. The seemingly endless cycle of training, dawn runs, breathing exercises, and evening sparring, was finally interrupted. The sudden appearance of mid-level Gangui brought immediate chaos, overriding the previous banter. The grueling training routine continued relentlessly, leaving some panting while others maintained calm focus. The squad stared on as the confrontation culminated, one man brought low by the display of raw power. The grueling training session finally concludes, leaving the exhausted disciples utterly spent. The squad leader praised the morning's efforts as two members headed off with supplies. Even amidst the chaos, the charismatic squad leader managed to maintain his unusual, goofy demeanor. The terrifying prospect of the Gangui tsunami loomed, yet these warriors laughed it off. The squad leader's pleasant smile belied the turmoil of facing the impending disaster. The squad leader gave her final instruction, which the others swiftly acknowledged. The squad leader, composed after the terrifying arrival of the Gangui, clears his throat before posing a quiet question. While the protagonist focuses on his own rapid ascent, his comrades also progress through their dedicated cultivation. The squad leader's legendary status extended even to the generally aloof Lady Jiangyan. While mastering swordsmanship, the internal cultivation method is essential. Seung's progress, even with the new technique, was still being noted. Zhangwan, too, was diligently learning a new set of martial arts. The aspirant's physical training focused on both internal energy and external indestructibility. These profound words, spoken amidst their morning meditation, hung heavy in the misty forest air. Despite the overwhelming odds they faced, even merely mid-level demons posed a severe threat. The predicted disaster struck like a tsunami, dozens of Gangui suddenly swarming the battlefield. With the enemy swarming, the vice leader urgently ordered a defensive formation. The imminent disaster loomed, yet the protagonist felt helpless, knowing he couldn't reveal the future he foresaw. Even this level of sudden engagement elicited a weary sigh from the squad leader. Despite his warnings, the sheer number of mid-level enemies overwhelmed the defensive formation. His irritation boiled over. Even swarms of bugs couldn't distract him from the absurdity of the situation. The training continued relentlessly, even as the chaos of impending doom loomed close. Suddenly, the air was filled with the ominous sound of buzzing insects, signaling danger. The squad leader's praise, though irritating, always elicited such enthusiastic reactions. The squad lavishes praise on their leader's skill, completely unaware of the danger looming. The squad members mocked the disparity between the dragon and the monkey nicknames. Despite the squad leader's rejection, the squad members' adoration for him remained unrestrained. The squad's camaraderie felt genuine, even amidst the grueling schedule. The enemy forces were suddenly overwhelming, an unexpected tsunami of mid-level demons. The prior moment of lighthearted banter shattered as the threat materialized, demanding immediate silence. As the threat of the Gangui surge loomed, Biseung surveyed the dense, forbidding forest line. The sheer number of incoming demonic forces was overwhelming, a true tsunami. Suddenly, the dire warning manifested. Gangui swarmed the lines like an unstoppable tsunami. The squad leader yelled a warning, the chaos erupting as the first wave of foes attacked. The warning of impending disaster hung heavy, yet the battle raged on, with swift strikes meeting the enemy horde. Just as the squad celebrated their mundane routine, an unimaginable terror descended upon them. The grim warning was immediate as the onslaught began, forcing a desperate order to retreat.